in this video, we're going to be very tactical here, and we're going to go over if I had 7 hours a week as a realtor, what am I going to do to build my brand on social media? And I'm going to go through every single thing that I'm going to do in that 1 hour per week a day. If you think about 7 hours a week, then you're thinking about an hour per day, but we're going to do it a little more tactically where you don't have to do it every single day as in that way, because you need some more time for stuff. The problem is most realtors nowadays are just focused on the wrong things. They think they need to be everywhere doing everything every single day, but that's not the case, and that's the thing that is really holding people back from actually doing social media marketing or actually getting proper results on social media. Now, in this video, we're going to go over at least the specific things you're going to do within the 7 hours time frame you have within the week, and we're going to talk about how you can prioritize your time in order to make whatever content or whatever you need to make happen to get that done for your social media marketing. And we're going to also go over some tools that you can use in order to help you expedite the process, help you make the process a little bit easier, right? All right, before we get started, there are some prerequisites that we already need to have before we can already start doing 7 hours per week on social media. For example, things like you already need to know your niche and your target audience. That you need to know at the back of your hand. You need to know the market you're really in and the people you are really going to be speaking to, the people that resonate most in that market, or the people that you want to cater to as a realtor, me, in that market. Number two, you need to have a clear strategy. And if you need help with making a strategy, if you don't have a strategy already, or if you think you have a strategy, then you probably need to go down to the links in the description. We have a free social media marketing template that can help you build a proper strategy depending on whatever your goals are, depending your brand is, and what you want to focus on and stuff like that. But you need to have a clear strategy in place. Number three, you need to have a solid branding, and I'm talking about like your voice, your tone, your messaging. It could be your colors too, your, well, not really logo, but basically your presence, how you want people to remember you whenever they think about you. You need to have a solid branding, and that can be mainly in the form of your message, right? And the way you talk and your voice and your tone in how you're going to represent yourself on social media. You need to have that solid. And for the last one, you need to have clear offers. There's another 5. There's actually another 5th one, but you need to have clear offers. And when I'm talking about offers, I mean something that you can offer to your target audience in your niche that they cannot resist to get, something they need to have. Of course, could be free, could be paid, but that is something that you know that your target audience in this niche or in this market cannot resist to have. And for the 5th one, you need to treat it as if you are doing a business activity. When you go on social media or when you're doing social media marketing, you need to treat it as if you are actually doing a business activity in terms of you going to a conference or you going to a business networking event or something like that. You need to treat it that way. Treat it as how you would go to these kinds of events or so. It's for your business. It's something that you're going to do for long term. So these are the prerequisites that you need to have, and you need to know if you're going to do this. Now, I'm going to use some examples to plug this into place. I'm not really going to think much about the stuff I'm going to, do if I was a realtor. Really, that's something I had to dig much more deeper. But in this video, I'm going to use some examples as if I was a realtor, right? So we're going to go over them. Let's talk about our audience. Let's say we want new construction. We want to target our niches in the new construction market, and we want to target couples and young professionals. That's who we want to target. That's our niche. That's our target audience, let's say. And in terms of our strategy, the best way to reach them, let's say, would be something like TikTok, Instagram, maybe Facebook or whatnots. And so, but let's say we know for sure it would be Instagram and TikTok. So let's say Instagram. I'll just focus only on Instagram. Now, we need to know, okay, how many times are we going to post on Instagram in order to really reach these people and get them going in terms of social media? So let's say we want to do 5 posts per week, right? 5 posts per week. Let's write that down. 5 posts every week. And we'll break it down between, for these 5 posts, we know that videos are doing extremely well. So we want to do majority of them for videos and the rest of them for whichever ones that we want. So let's say in this 5 posts per week, actually, since we're doing Instagram, just thinking of the strategy now, since we're doing Instagram, we have stories too. We want to take advantage of stories. So we want to do roughly double our post, right? So let's say 10 stories per week. Let's double that. Let's do 10 stories per week. That should be not difficult at all. Now, for these posts and stories, we need to know what our approach is. Let's say, for example, how we are going to reach people right now, or how we're going to convert people depending on what we want to do, right? So if I have 7 hours a week and my goal is I want to reach as much people as possible, right? Many people have different goals that they want to hit. They want to reach many people. Some people want to garner more engagement in their posts, and some people don't really want so much reach or engagement. They want people more to convert more. So there are three different levels to that. But let's say for my goal is to reach more people and of course probably convert them, right? So I want to reach as much reach as I can, and I want to convert. I want conversions, right? I want conversions, reach and conversions. Those are the two things that I want mainly for my social media marketing. And I need to do that within the 5 posts per week and 10 stories per week, right? Now let's know that, okay, within this 5 posts, we know that videos are doing very well. So we want to include videos in that, and we'll put majority of videos in our 5 posts. So let's say 3 to 4 videos per week. Let's put that down, 3 to 4 videos. And let's say 1 to 2 carousels, because carousels are always just a great resource to use, and you can repurpose it in different ways. 1 to 2 carousels, okay? So we know this is what our post is going to consist of. 3 to 4 videos, 1 to 2 carousels every single week. That should cover our 5 posts per week. That should cover our 10 stories per week. So what we're going to do is a strategy of how you can double your posts, right? Or double your stories. So one thing you're going to do, this is just us going over the strategy. So or at least going over my branding and my premise basically. So you understand what I'm going to do within the 7 hours. So let's say that my strategy would be, if I have 5 posts per week and I have 10 stories, I already know that half of those stories will go for the 5 posts, but how can I double it? So if I add 1 post if I say I want to share every single post that I make per week in my stories, but let's add 1 more extra post, like 1 more teaser post before that post, that should take care of it. So for example, if I have, like, just to let you know, if I have a reel that I have posted on my feed, this is my reel, I will want to share this to my story again, right? So now that would just be 5 posts if I had all of that, right? 5 posts. If I have another post, another post, another post, and another post, I'll share them again to my story, share it again to my story, share it again to my story, share it again to my story, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. But for stories, I have 10. So I want to add one more post for this, just one more. And the purpose of what this extra post is going to be is to tease this content. Yeah, it will be to tease this. That can be in the creates, that can be me just getting the camera and just speaking to the camera. That can be just text on screen, however the case is, but that's the approach I'm going to use, right? Just to tease this. Now, when I share this, of course, I'm going to have something a little bit more interesting than just, clicking the share button and adding to story and simply leaving it that way, right? I want to tease it. So this is how I'm going to take care of the quantity of posts that I need for my feed and for my stories. So now this should be a very good foundational strategy. This is not really going so into the details, as I mentioned earlier. This is not going into a lot of the details that we normally would go into, psychological triggers, motivations, and all of that stuff. This is just so you have a good foundation to where my whole 7 hours would be going into and how I'll come about with those 7 hours. So we have our base strategy done. We have our 7 hours a week time limitation that we need, and we need to basically make all our content and everything done. But how are we going to do this step by step in a more systematic way that we can approach it. To understand what we're going to do is we're going to take a little piece of history, right? Which actually is also done nowadays, but we're going to go way back to where it kind of started or blew up. In 1918, there was a guy called Charles Schwab who implemented a productivity system within his steel company that is called the Ivy Lee method. If you know about this, you know about this, but it's called the Ivy Lee method. But if I remember correctly, that when he started implementing it, he became the second largest steel producer in the entire world, I believe. So just from implementing this method. And what did this method really comprise of? It was basically, he took this top 6 most priority tasks, nothing more than this, and he just stuck to the top 6 priority tasks every single day. But for us, it might look a little bit different, as we're going to just take that as inspiration or adapt that to make it work for our own scenario. So here's how we're going to break this down. We have our 7 hours a week. Let's say this full circle here is going to be our whole time. This is our whole 7 hours a week. We're going to break it down. Now we're going to break it down by this. We're going to slash it in half, and we're going to add another little piece here. And I'll go into all of these pieces later, but for this first part, what we're going to do is content creation. That's what we're going to do, and this would take up 50% of our time, which would be equivalent of 3.5 hours. Okay, so we have 50% of all this time of 7 hours, 3.5 hours a week to do content creation. I know a lot of people already will start being, oh wait, I cannot do this in 3.5 hours, create my entire content for the whole week in 3.5 hours. Technically you can, but I'll show you how you can adjust these numbers to make things work for you in your own scenario. This is just what would make sense for me and how it would work for me. But if you did these where you have 50% of the time of your 7 hours a week goes into content creation, and just because we are doing a lot of videos, we are making a lot of videos and reels, although we can still do them within this time, I still like to give a little more flexibility in case I need to be creative with something, or I think of a creative idea of something. So I'm going to actually make this 4 hours, which would be 4 hours of this time. Right, which would be roughly, I don't know, the percentage would be roughly, if I'm doing the math correctly, 57%. Okay, so we're going to go into these other parts a little bit later. I'll leave these parts for now, but let's talk about the content creation part of things so we understand that before I move on to these other parts of the pie of our 7 hours a week of what we're going to do. So we need to understand the tasks. Remember, the 6 most important tasks, but let's figure out how many tasks involve content creation that we can fit in within 6. So let's say we have for content creation, I'll just put this down here, and let's say we have tasks 1, which would be your, I'll just put usually people usually break this part, this task 1, into different tasks and different segments, and so I'll just put it into what I call R&D. Simple as that, which is just research and development. So that is you finding the topics, researching the topics, knowing what you want to do in terms of, okay, this is how I'm going to do the topics and approach these topics, and developing that idea, right? Developing how you're going to approach each of those topics, what you're going to say, and all of that. So that will be for the week. Now that I understand what topics I'm going to talk about, my approaches for each of the topics for the rest of the week, I'm going to go into a much more sophisticated, I guess you can say, sophisticated development level, which would be writing the scripts, or I'll just write here script writing, since I'm doing videos, right, and I'm going to do carousels. So I'm going to do script writing, or we can just call it the actual writing parts, which would be writing the script and writing the content specifically for the carousels. This would just be a simple tool that I can go in and use, right? If I'm using Notion or Obsidian, or if I'm using Google Doc or whatever, I'll just have the things that I'm going to be doing specifically in the videos outlined. The videos will be outlined, and the carousels would have all the content that's needed for each of the carousels. So that is the more sophisticated development part of things rather than this one. In this one, our development is mainly just figuring out which topics and figuring out what our approach is going to be. If I'm going to take a more educational approach, if I'm going to take this in a more different approach, a contrarian approach, or if I'm going to take this way more analytical and I need data and all of that, that is the development, the research and development part of things here. Now for the third part is recording. So I'll just write recording here and I will write, actually I wouldn't write, I'll write recording here and I'm just going to put an asterisk here, because if you do your own plan, for example, if you do your own strategy, your own plan, and it doesn't involve video, you will not be recording, but you really should be involving video in your whole strategy. But let's say if you're not doing videos and you're only doing, like, let's say Twitter or something like that, because you have your audience on there and there's a lot of, you've seen a lot of engagement there and there's a lot of stuff that you're getting out from there, from writing and all of that, maybe even threads, then you're probably not using a lot of videos, but I'll still say use videos. This task would not really be applicable to you in your case, but in my scenario, since I'm doing videos, I'm going to be recording. So I'll put an asterisk there. Now for the next task here is going to be editing. And in terms of editing, I'm going to break it down by two things here. It's going to be editing or designing. This is editing the videos, obviously, and this is designing the carousels. But here's the thing. While I'm doing my carousels and while I'm doing my videos, there are many ways for me to really cut back on the time of the workflow of creating all of these over from scratch. For example, carousels. If I go on Canva and I just create a carousel template, maybe two carousel templates that I use over and over again, that is great, beautifully designed, and I have a format and a flow to each of them based on what the different types of content is that I put in my carousels, all I need to do is just copy paste or make a copy of what that template is and just input whatever the script writing is or the writing of the actual carousels that is in my Google Doc or in my Notion doc into the actual design of the carousel. That's what I'll do. As far as editing, of course, if I have different assets like my logo, different sound effects, different music, different text, font, and all of that, I will make sure that I have save those as presets or save those somewhere that is very easy to be accessible, right? Where I can just either drag and drop it from a folder onto my editing platform, or I can just easily access it from the editing platform itself. And all of these editing platforms out there, they have all this kind of things. They have all these tools to make them easy, from creating presets to actually just helping you organize everything in a much easier way, right? So this is the task I'll do. Now for the fifth task here, I will put an asterisk for this one, which would be the posting / scheduling. Okay, now I'll put an asterisk here for this one, which actually, let me change this asterisk here so it is a little bit more visible. In terms of posting and scheduling, I'll get to that in a bit, because this part here is kind of dependent on what we're going to do in this little part of our time frame here, right? This is kind of linked to this in a way, and it would depend on certain things that we do here that would dictate what we'll do here too, and certain things that we'll do here would dictate how we're going to approach this task here. So that is for the content creation part of things, right? So now let's move on to our next big chunk, which would be roughly, I'll say 43% left, right? So let's say roughly we have, for this big chunk of things, we have 33% of the time, which will give it roughly around 2.5 hours. Let's just say 2.5 hours, just for simple math. I'm not a mathematician. This is for simple math. But what we're going to do, our major thing that we're going to do in this part of our 7 hours is going to be relationship building. That is what we're going to do. And what does relationship building really entails, you ask? Great question. Let's write it down here, what our tasks are for our relationship building parts. All right. So we have that. We need to figure out our task, our top 6 most priority important tasks. We have 5 tasks, which is great. So let's figure out what our very first priority task in terms of relationship building. But before we get into understanding or get into the task of what the relationship building is, we need to know what does that really mean when it comes to social media marketing, right? And I'm talking about, you need to think of social media in this way. Let's say, for example, in your niche or in my niche is construction, right? It's new construction and all of that. So this is a road, right? This is a road here. Let's just get this. This is a road and these are houses, right? These are your houses. Around your houses is your neighborhood, right? So that's what it is. New construction. This is the neighborhood that we are in. New construction, our niche, whatever you can call it. Let's say this is your house here, which would be, this is your social media profile. Right? This is your house. All these other houses are your neighbors, which are the other people who are creating content similar to the content that you are creating, right? But what you want to think about in terms of social media is when you post something online, every single post, I want you to think of it as like an invitation. Hey, this is an invitation to my party, and people, you're hosting a party, right? You are the host in your house when you do a post. You are the host with the posts, right? So you have posted something on social media, and that is an invite for people to come to your home. People are coming to your party and all of that and join your party. They're reading your post and they are going to your profile or whatnot. And so you have different things laid out. You have the bottles. You can have beer pong if you do that kind of thing, if you're into that, or if you can have balloons or stuff like that. But just think of it like that. Or you can think of it as, if you're a more chill back way, it's more like, okay, maybe it's a game night, right? Every single post is you having a game night or whatever activity that it is where it involves different people. So when you post, people would want to come into your content. Other people too would also post probably at the same time or be doing different similar activities. Maybe they have barbecues, right, going on. Maybe they're having barbecue night going on. Or maybe this other person is having a karaoke, right? Because they'll all be posting different posts. And those activities are basically the post. What you want to do is not just stay in your home, right? Because this is your neighborhood. You want to be able to go to other people's homes, right? Go to other people's homes, connect with your neighbors, connect with the people that they are also connected with. Because if they are coming to this, chances are they will also probably like your own parties that you're hosting, depending on whatever it is that you are doing, right, in your party or in your post per se, right? So you want to go to other people's content / other people's parties or events or activities and build connections with those people. You want to build connections with, of course, the host itself, if you can, and of course, build connections with the people who are invited to each of these parties out here or activities, you can say. Right? So you're going out there, other people's content, and basically on social media, what you're going to be doing is commenting on other people's content, right? This is how you want to think about it. You're going to go there, comment on other people's content, and while you're hosting your own show, hosting your own activity or whatever, you're also making sure that everyone is taken care of. Everyone is good. How are you feeling? Are you enjoying and all of that? You having fun? All of that. You want to make sure that people are also going to come back to your own party, to your own activity / to your own posts every single time that you do a post / you do an invite or host one of these events. So think of it this way. Social media is like this, right? Where everything is a neighborhood and then your streets and your content. I hope this can visually give you the idea of social media marketing when it comes to us doing relationship building. So with that in mind, let's figure out what our tasks are. Our top 6 most priority tasks that we need to do, which the very first one, which is of the priority, is to reply to comments or DMs if you have DMs going on, right? This is what I'm going to be doing. Replying to my comments, replying to my DMs every single time to build relationship with the people who are already coming to my content, to make sure that they can come back to my content again and get some more value. Or if we're already in DMs, I can try and make sure that I convert them into a proper lead, into a hot lead, or possibly even get them to be a client if I can, right? So that is what I'm going to do. Now, my second task, my second most priority task is to comment on other people's content. I'll just write OPCs, right? Comment on other people's content, right? And also not just comment on other people's content, but try and reply back to people commenting. Now, the way I'm going to approach this is obviously not going to be salesy, because that's what a lot of people think when you say, oh, I'm going to go on other people's content and I'm going to reply, and it's going to be me just providing my services, or hey, I'm just giving you a digital business card basically in your own comment. That is a turnoff for a lot of people, so I don't want to do that. One thing I want to do is I'll follow a very simple framework that you can kind of replicate over, and I can go over this in a very simple video later on. If you want to see that video, let me know, but the framework is very simple. ORV. This is my framework, ORV. This is the framework I'm going to use to be replying to other people's content or commenting on other people's content, to make sure that I am not being salesy, to make sure that I am not coming off as someone that is super basic and doesn't have anything else to add value to the actual content or to the actual people consuming that content. This is going to take up 2.5 hours of our time every single week, and I'll break this out, try and spread them out throughout the whole week as much as I can, and of course not just do them all in one day if possible. That is just not the best strategy to go about this. You don't want to do this all in one day. You want to do this spread out throughout the week. For this, if you can, for the content creation part of things, if you can do it in one day, which you sit down, you record your videos, do everything all in one day in 4 hours, awesome. You have more time throughout the week to do many other things that you want. But if you can't, then you can spread this out throughout the week. Maximum, I would say maximum 2 days to 3 days, roughly around there. You want to make sure that you are sticking within this content creation thing. What I'm trying to avoid in content creation is having to create content every single day. I want to avoid that. I want to batch content create, right? For this little piece here that I was talking about, this part, our final boss, we will call it, this part is the float. So what does the float mean? Out of the whole week, throughout the entire week, you will notice that a little bit of some time would go somewhere into content creation, or a little bit of time would go somewhere into relationship building. Somewhere or the other, you might go over, and that is where the float would come in, where you have a little bit of some more hours, which would be 0.5 hours in this case, right? Which would be just 30 minutes throughout the entire week to do anything else that you couldn't do throughout this entire time of content creation or relationship building. This other 30 minutes is also time for, in case of an emergency trend or something that comes up that you are trying to get out trendy as quick as possible, right? You're trying to get it in a timely manner. That is where this float will come in. You have 30 minutes for that. Or at least for me, I have 30 minutes for that. And I'll try to make sure that any task that I'm doing is getting done in this 30 minutes. So when I come back to how it was linked here to content creation of posting and scheduling, this would be my primary thing that I would try to do within this 30 minutes. I'll try to do this in 30 minutes, posting and scheduling all the content that I have created here. I will try and do that in 30 minutes. So that's what I'm going to do, the very first task in this float, which is posting and this is terrible handwriting. Posting and scheduling. If I still have time within this 4 hours and I've done all of these tasks, including posting and scheduling, float with 30 minutes can do anything else that you want, not just posting and scheduling. That is the priority thing that we want to do. But if there's still time, all of these things are taken care of and all, and I still have more time within my float, the next thing that I'm going to try and do or focus on doing is coming up with better ideas. I'll just write here, this out here, R&D, right? That's what I'm going to do. Research and development. I will still research, if I still have some more time, research better topics, research better ways to make my videos better, research better ways to write my scripts or write my outlines or whatever I need to make it more convincing or make it even better or to tell better stories or whatnot. Research and development is what I'm going to do. Figure out the topics that people are talking about. Figure out the types of content that are currently resonating with the couples and the young professionals that I'm really trying to target. Figure out what's trending in new construction and what the market data is talking about. All of those things. That is what I'm going to be doing in my float if I have more time within this float time, right? So in order to make all of these things work, we need to do one thing, and you need to understand, or at least me, I need to understand one thing that I'm going to prioritize throughout this entire time doing these things, right? Which I'm going to write here in a second. This is what I'm going to prioritize. This is how I can make this work. If I have only 7 hours a week to make my entire content and build my brand on social media, I have to keep these principles in mind. Consistency over perfection, basic over creativity. Now, I'm not saying kill creativity or kill perfection. Of course, have a level of finesse, have a level of sophistication to the content you're creating, but I'm going to try and make it as systematic and simple as possible and not try to do things that are way over what I can do or do things that are going to take more time out of something else that I could already be doing. Again, if I have time, if I still have time in my float time, I would go for creativity. I would do something a little more creative then, or think about the next way to do something a little more creative, or whatever the case may be. But I want to stick to consistency, doing it over and over again, sticking to my schedule, 5 posts per week and not failing, sticking to my schedule of 10 stories per week and not failing. I want to stick to all of these things, making sure I'm creating 3 to 4 videos, 1 to 2 carousels, depending on whatever it is, throughout the week and sticking to it. This is my principles I'm going to have to live by. This is just a very simple, stupid math. Now, disclaimer with this math here, the point of this math is not to be super on the nose or super exactly how things work. They're not. The numbers are made up, but it's meant to also be realistic, where you can get an idea of how you can calculate in your own aspects of what will work for you. So let's go over this stupid math here. We have one piece of content times 208 days, which would be how many? 208 touch points, right? So 208 is just coming out from posting roughly 5 times a week, right? Roughly 5 times a week. Out of the 208 touch points, let's say we have 208 touch points, and let's multiply that by 100 views. Let's say we get roughly around 100 views for each of these videos, each of these carousels, whatever, but let's say 100 video, right, for one piece of content. That would be roughly around 20,800 impressions, right? I'll be roughly around 20,800 impressions from all of these touch points throughout the entire year, right? Throughout the entire year. Girl math. And let's say we have, is another one, we have a 1% conversion, right, from this 1%. So let's just do that by 1%, the 20,800. Let's multiply that by 1% for conversions. Convert only that. We have roughly around 208 clicks, right? We have roughly 208 clicks out of 1% conversions from 2,800 impressions throughout the entire year of just one piece of content. Now, let's say out of these clicks, people who are only going to click whatever our bio or click the link for something or comment something to get whatever stuff, right? Let's say out of these clicks that we get, we have roughly a 30% conversion on that. 30% of those people who are going to convert into actual leads. And I will put that to 62 leads. And I'm using this now. You might be wondering why I'm using these percentages, right? And these are just from, me as a marketer, understanding all of these marketing terminologies, all these marketing things, and knowing how things convert, right? So 1% would only convert from like a big chunk, right? Let's say you are marketing to the top of the funnel, right? So your conversion rate at top of the funnel is going to be extremely low, very low. That's why we're at 1% here. But the people who have now gone down, they are more of a mid-funnel people, there will be better chances of them converting, right? There'll be a high chance of them converting if they are somewhat interested in what you have to offer. Now, all of that will come down to, of course, how good your persuasion is, how good your conversion rates are, how good exactly the value is that they're going to get out of whatever you are giving them. That's why 30% would be up here. But roughly, it would be roughly around 10 to 30%. 30% is the good side of things. It's a very good side to be converting at middle of the funnel, right? But it'll be roughly like 10% or even less if you don't really have something that super valuable yet, right? But let's assume that I do have something extremely valuable, which I do. I have lots of good lead magnets, lots of good value, lots of good stuff. And I'm going to convert very well because I already understand how my posts are going to go. I already have some authority to use. Or maybe I have some people that I can also borrow their authority from. And also, if I have testimonials too, all of that good stuff. I'm going to convert at a 30% conversion roughly, which will give me roughly 62 leads. Now, out of these leads, we're going to go down again to 10% of those are going to convert. 10% conversions. And that would lead us to roughly around 6 hot leads. 6 really hot leads from these, right? I'm not talking physical, I'm talking marketing hot, okay? Out of these 6 hot leads, these are people who are already ready to buy. My conversions are going to go higher then, since they are much more interested now and much more invested after going through all these touch points and whatnot that I've already done, right? They're much more interested in what I have to offer. So I would be converting here roughly at, let's say, 50% of them. 50%, which I should actually, instead of saying conversions on here, let's just say 10% appointments. That would be a much better term to use there. And out of these 50%, I have out of these hot leads, I have a 50% close rate, right? So half of these, if I know that out of my hot leads, my 10% appointments, out of my appointments, I close roughly around 50% of them, which would give me roughly 3 clients from these, right? So I have 3 clients from these 6 hot leads that I have. And I say these clients, they are looking for roughly around the 400K. Let's take the average homes, right? The average new construction homes, which is actually even much more higher than this. But let's say $400,000 homes, right? And my commission rates would really depend, right? But let's just say a very mild 2% commission rate that I have. So I will be getting roughly around 24,000 from these 3 clients. And let's say this is, let's just clarify here. This is yearly from just one piece of content. Now, I'm not saying, now this is my girl math. I am not saying that every single piece of content or whatever one piece of content you're going to post is going to give you 24,000. That's not what I'm saying. This is throughout the entire year, one piece of content. Let's just take one piece of content throughout the entire year that you have posted would have all these touch points, have all these impressions, all these conversions that would turn to appointments, that would turn into close rates, that would turn into clients, and then from those clients you're going to get your commission, and depending on what your commission is, that's just all that you have done for the entire year from one piece of content. Now imagine if this was maybe roughly around 20 pieces of content that has converted, that has better chances of conversions that are more, sales focused throughout the entire year, 20 pieces of content throughout the entire year that are more sales focused, right? So you would have better chances of these numbers going up. Now, you also need to think about that the impressions and the views and all of that would really depend. You can have less than 100. You can have way more than 100 views. So all of these numbers would just be all over the place. They will be higher, they will be lower, but whatever the case is, this is my girl math for you to understand just how the flow of a social media one piece of content can flow down to your bottom line, basically. And for many realtors and many people doing social media marketing, there is one thing that is just absolutely killing them and killing their efforts when it comes to actually creating their brand and building a proper brand on social media. And it comes down to one thing, right? They consume rather than create. You need to create more than you consume, or to the very least have a balance between the amount of time that you consume versus the time that you create. You can't, they spend, like most realtors would spend like 90% of their entire time throughout the week or throughout the day just consuming content, but never actually creating. And that should not be the split. It should be at least, to the very least, 50% split on both sides, or it should be 60% here and it should be 40% here, or maybe you can do 70% here. When you're getting a little bit better and you're getting more results from your social media, 70% here, 30% here, and it should be like this. It should never skew more towards consuming more than you're creating. You should have a balance between both, or you should put more time into creating your content rather than consuming content. That's just how you would use social media and have a better use of social media rather than just getting it on and doom scrolling, right? You really have two choices, right? For those of you who are extremely busy, or for the people who are watching this video right now, you have two choices. You can continue doing what you are already doing and getting the same results, or moving at a very snail pace mode, right? Where you are barely seeing any results or barely maintaining what you already have. But as I said, I am trying to grow. I'm trying to reach more people and increase my conversions. That's what I'm trying to do. And if you are trying to do that and you want to get started with this kind of plan that I have put together, there are two ways you can go about it. You can go about the DIY way, which I would say first thing to do, first step in the DIY way, is to go down to the link below in the description. I have two resources there for you. I have a social media strategy template to help you build a similar strategy to what I have put together here, but in a much more complex way and much more streamlined way to put together for you a social media strategy. And the second resource is a social media content calendar. I've created this on Google Sheets to help make sure that it's very accessible to pretty much everyone. But what you can do is you can take the sheets, the way I have laid it out in the sheets for the calendar, and if you're using a separate, your own separate platform like Notion or Obsidian or Microsoft OneNote or whatever the case is, maybe even Trello, you can model what I already have created on Google Sheets and model that into your own program to make sure it works for you. But if you don't have your own program or stuff like that, Google Sheets works just as good as the other ones too. So you can start doing that. Build your strategy, get the content calendar, and already start creating content for yourself and start building yourself a proper social media strategy. Another big one that I'm going to include in the description below is a 90-day social media marketing blueprint for real estate professionals, right? For realtors to use. That is the blueprint that you can start following through everything that I talk about, everything on how to use the strategy, how to post and how to create the content, what you need to keep in mind, everything in terms of a proper blueprint to build you a proper, strong social media presence. Get those 3 resources if you're going to go the DIY way. And if you want to go the done for you route where you want someone to actually do this for you, here at Leet Creative, we can help you do that, okay? And the best way to reach out to us is to go to the link below or go to this link here and click here to contact us, and we will go over everything that we need in order to help you get started and help you actually start building a proper strategy and building your presence, your authority, and everything you need on social media. We take care of everything from the planning phase, the strategy building phase, to the actual content production phase of things, or the content creation phase of things. And if it does include distribution, we do distribution. We would distribute the content on your behalf, so you don't have to do that yourself. Unless, again, if you're doing Instagram, like I said, and I'm a little bit skeptical about that, we can talk about that, and we can see ways that we can start to do that manually, where we are updating that manually, right? But we have our own tools to schedule out the content way ahead of time. So if you are interested in that, reach out to us and let's talk.